So to sum it all up, here's a couple of final thoughts to keep in mind as you finish up your blockout. So as we've talked about, by the end of your blockout phase, you want to have clear reference and proxy meshes for basically everything in your scene. So when you actually start creating the assets, you know exactly what you're making and you've got it backed up by reference and your proxy mesh. So you know the shapes, the size, the materials, and you know exactly what to do at that point, and you're going to start working on it. Second off is don't make your project too large, quality over quantity, like we've talked about. Always prioritize quality for portfolio pieces. If you feel like you're going too big and you're sacrificing quality in this place, it's probably not worth going that large in most cases. It's always a bit of a balancing act, of course. You know, you cannot have a huge quantity of assets and make it fast and make it super high quality. So you kind of got to pick your battles, but I usually say shoot for quality first. See what time frame you'd like to finish your scene in. So, you know, maybe or like I want to spend 4 months on a scene and that's all I'm willing to spend. Or depending on the situation in your life, you know, it's different for everybody how much time you might have on your hands. So I would just choose accordingly how big or small you want to go. And yeah, that way you can ensure you can make your scene look awesome with the time frame you have instead of having a super ambitious, huge plan, but once you're doing very little time and it's making it not look so great. Because yeah, if you go really large, it's either going to take a really long time or you're going to sacrifice quality. So it's a balancing act, but always prioritize quality is what I would say. Also, don't get stuck in the details during your blockout. Start with bigger shapes and silhouettes. You know, there's no point in modeling in really small details at this stage yet. It's very likely going to replace layer down the line anyway. Like if you have a super detailed statue, for instance, in the end, you're just going to make a proper ZBrush sculpt. So it wouldn't be worth spending too much time on all the little small details and stuff in Maya at this stage. You might as well just block in the basic shapes, make sure it looks close enough to the proper silhouette and stuff. And only when you start making the actual asset, do like a really proper sculpt and stuff. Because at this stage, you just want to get a really good sense for the overall shapes and silhouettes in your scene. And you want to make sure composition feels good. And model in just the details you need to accomplish your goals, which is also mainly just to have a clear idea of what you need to make and what things will look like. And to do so, you generally don't need a lot of crazy detail in there. So yeah, you don't need to go much further beyond that. You just want to mainly focus on the bigger picture at this point. Also, don't be afraid to iterate a bunch right now. You know, this is the best time to make major changes to your project. If you have any finished art layer down the line, it's going to be very hard to make major changes since it will likely require a lot of rework of assets, which you'll actually find happening in proper game production sometimes too, where at some point mid-game production, major changes might happen. And that might mean a lot of rework since it might affect all of the content that's been created thus far for the game. So ideally, all those major decisions and questions kind of get answered in the earliest stages of your project, in this case, the blockout kind of phase. So just make sure you iterate a bunch this early on so that you make the right decisions on kind of what you like and what you don't like. And just try out different ideas to make sure you like the overall feel of everything in your blockout before you move on. It's really easy to make changes while there's no final art, so definitely just take your time to iterate a whole bunch in these early stages. And also just make sure to keep your folder structure clean. This might sound kind of redundant, but honestly, just knowing where your source and raw files live, knowing where all of your files live, just from a first glance at a project will save a lot of time later down the line. I've seen a bunch of cases where folder structures get messy and it just slows artists down a bunch because they can't find the files they need to work on, or they might want to share a file with somebody and they have to dig through a whole bunch of files first to make sure it's the right one and stuff. So just knowing exactly where to find all your files, making sure you kind of mirror your Unreal folder structure with your raw folder structure, kind of like we've kind of shown in the early videos. And yeah, just keeping that all aligned so you know where things live is a huge win. So staying on top of that, just keeping things clean and organized is a really good idea generally. So that pretty much sums it up for this lesson. That's all the blockout stuff and reference gathering and kind of general project planning to keep in mind. So next up, there will be a landscape video and a lot more cool videos to come for this series. So hope to see you around and have a good one.